Hoebee, producing artistic director for Paper Mill Playhouse. Just waiting for Mark to join us. Thanks so much for being here. Today we'll be talking about how Mark has led the Paper Mill through the Broadway shutdown, what they're doing to engage their audiences currently, and their plans for 2021. If anyone has any questions or comments, just send them this way and we'll try to answer them during the interview portion. Thanks again. Just waiting on Mark to join. He should be with us very shortly. Come on in, Mark. You should have an invite waiting for you. Just click that and it'll send you in. I'll give you a little text real quick. Hey folks, we seem to be having just a little technical difficulties. I'm going to log off really quick and then I'll start the live again. Still working on it, folks. Here we go.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, hey, buddy.
Sorry, I
No
was.
worries.
Hold on. Oh, just getting set. Oh my God. New platform, crazy. Couldn't figure it out, but I'm here.
Everyone's got a gimmick, right? It's
Yeah,
so
they're
good to see your
all.
face.
You too, man. It's so good to see you. Thanks for having me on. Sorry I'm a little late,
No, no
but I'm
worries.
happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you, and we are going to uh, do a quick little introduction of you, so the audience gets to know you. Mark Hoebee is the producing artistic director at the legendary Paper Mill Playhouse located in Millburn, New Jersey. He joined the artistic team in the year 2000, and under Mark's leadership as producing artistic director, the Paper Mill was awarded the 2016 Regional Theater Tony Award. Also, while Mark has been artistic director, they have presented Newsies in association with Disney's theatrical productions, shows like Bandstand, A Bronx Tale, The Sting starring Harry Connick Jr. Mark has also directed several shows at Paper Mill, including Thoroughly Modern Millie, Annie, Mary Poppins, West Side Story, and I'm biased, but my personal favorite, Disney's Beauty and the Beast. Mark, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Happy to be here. And that was the best show. The Beast was unbelievable. He was singularly great.
The I want to. The first thing I want to know is how you, what you were doing when personally, you and your family were doing when the shutdown was announced in mid-March.
Sure. Well, my daughter was in school. My son was in training to be a security guard. My partner works
Mm-hmm.
for CBS Evening News, and Paper Mill was in rehearsal for Sister Act. We were in New York City, finishing the first week of rehearsals for Sister Act.
Okay, so you were about to move to the theater
Yeah,
when the shutdown was announced.
that's exact. We were midway through the rehearsal process in New York.
And because Paper Mill is a not-for-profit regional theater located in New Jersey, were the was the protocol any different than what was happening in New York City with Broadway and the rest of the New York theatrical industry?
No, I mean, it was all the same, and I think that's because the three governors, tri-state area, came together and they were all operating as one. But because we were in rehearsal, we were following the guidelines that were set up in New York. In fact,
Right.
I saw the very last performance of Jagged Little Pill before the shutdown. So I was there, I guess it was Thursday night, and then the shutdown happened on Friday the 13th. So, and we actually did one more day in the studio to finish out the week. That was not illegal. The cast
Hmm.
agreed to it, and then we closed down for what we thought was going to be 2 weeks. Remember that? They were like,
Yes.
"Yeah, we'll shut down for 2 weeks," and we all thought, "2 weeks? What do we do for 2 weeks?" Now here we are, 6 months later.
Right.
Oh my gosh, pulling our hair
So
out.
you, as that's gone on, as you said, we've gotten rolling dates about when not only the Broadway and New York theater industry is going to restart in some way, but you're also dealing with rolling dates, whether you're leading a huge regional theater in New Jersey or if it's happening in San Diego, Seattle, Connecticut. How have you dealt with these rolling dates as you've had to change and maneuver and massage and manipulate your season? Because you had a whole season, you have thousands of subscribers planning to go to these shows, and you're having to change sort of every month how you're leading the company and adjusting what's happening at the theater.
Yeah, it's been kind of crazy. We thought we were going to just delay those productions. We were doing Sister Act, and then we were going to do this world premiere musical of The Wanderer, which is the
Hmm.
story of Dion, Dion from Dion and the Belmonts, and that was already cast. So we thought we were going to delay those things, and then we thought we were going to cancel Sister Act. We didn't know what was really happening because it kept stretching out, and eventually it got to a point where we had to tell. We have 22,000 subscribers, actually, a lot of really loyal
Wow.
fans, that we weren't going to be able to produce anything at the end of last season. It was just getting too late, and there was no clarity about how we could safely come back. And also, all the unions had stopped agreeing to contracts. Equity wouldn't allow their actors to work, and IATSE, we're a fully, hello Los Angeles, we're a fully union theater. And so the work just stopped. And we had already announced next season. We had announced 5 shows we were planning on doing starting
Wow.
in October. One of them was a huge project with Disney Theatrical, who we've worked with a lot. We were going to launch this brand new tour of Aida, which was going to be directed by Shelley Williams. We were really excited about that. And so what we've come to learn is that show has now been canceled. They're not going to do it. And so we've been in touch with
Wow.
our subscribers over these last couple of months saying, we are going to produce a season. We're just not sure what it looks like yet. And we've been scrambling. We've been busier than ever before. We've done set at least 5 or 6 different budgets for the year, and I'd say probably 7 different lineups of shows. Originally, we were going to start in October. Then we thought we were going to open maybe in January. Now it looks like a little later than that. We're basically going to have to follow the same protocols as Broadway, which is now looking toward the spring for live performance. But Broadway actually has it a little harder than us because their audience is made up of tourists mostly, right?
Right.
I mean, New Yorkers go to see shows, but you see it once. You might go back if it runs a long time, but really it's the tourist crowd that keeps pumping those theaters full of, 1,200, 1,500 patrons a night. Paper Mill, we have a captive audience there. They live in New Jersey. They're, in our backyard. So once it's safe to bring people back, I think our audience will come back a little quicker. But we actually are going to make an announcement in October about what our season looks like for the coming year. And it's, like most people, it's going to be a combination of virtual, hopefully
Right.
going live once we can.
I just want to sort of like piggyback on a point you just made. Do you have, because of the Broadway industry's reliance on tourism and the fact that you do have a built-in subscriber audience, which of course you have to continue to cultivate and curate, and how are you having to, as these rolling decisions are being made, are you having to adjust the choice of material based on what you think will get people, especially particularly the things you're planning on doing live, based on what you think will get the most amount of people safely, because I know a lot of things are predicated on a workable vaccine, but are you choosing material based on that?
Well, what we're doing is, unfortunately, like most theaters and entertainment venues, we've had to lay a lot of people off, right?
Yeah.
We've had to downsize, reduce the size of our company. And we know that when we go live, which I think will be before probably Broadway fully comes back, we're going to have to respect social distancing. So our theater is about 1,140 seats. You've been there. You've seen it.
Yeah.
From the stage and from the house. So we're just under 1,200 seats. So, to respect the social distancing guidelines that are allowed now, they just, in New Jersey, upped the amount of people you can have at an indoor event to 150. So we can get 150 people in the theater safely distanced, but we can't make that work financially.
Correct.
Right. At the 6-foot mark, like to keep 6 feet distance around people, we can get about 310 people into the theater, but that doesn't work financially either. We can't really come back until we can get about 400 or 500 people in the theater. So things are going to have to, the guidelines are going to have to ease up. And that's why I think we're going to have to get through the flu season of November, December, January. And then when that's on the downslide, hopefully, and the vaccine is out, which we all are praying for, then we can get, if we can get up to 50% in the house, then we can come back. So it means our financial model is really, really compromised. You know, we
Yeah.
typically, our production, a 5 show season for us, we typically put in but somewhere between, 6.5 to $9 million in 5 shows, and
Wow.
we won't have anywhere near that kind of money. So we're making smart choices, me, my team, and I, and artistic team and marketing, to make sure that we're going to deliver shows that are of the kind of quality and standard that are impressive to a paper mill audience, but they just won't be as expensive. I don't think you'll sit and watch the show and think this is cheap. It's not cheap. It'll be, beautifully cast, incredibly produced. It'll be high production values, but they're going to have to be smaller casts, smaller bands, things like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that in order for the financial model to work, some of the restrictions need to be eased, which would need to happen on a state level. And
Right.
paper mill is such an important, integral part of the fabric of New Jersey culture. Are you in constant contact with state and local officials about what's being done, what the protocols are, the restrictions, when they're going to be perhaps lessened, and so you can have a better idea of what you can do in the future?
We're in touch, but we don't get any more information really than anybody else. We don't have we don't have like a mole in the
Right.
governor's office, but
Would
although
that be
that would be
nice?
nice. Yeah, yeah. But we are one of the major arts institutions in New Jersey, and we feel that we're highly supported by the state. The State Arts Council is our largest donor, and so we're in constant communication with members of the Arts Council and in the governor's office, and with state officials. But they can only tell us what they know.
Right.
It's out of our hands. It's really being dictated by medical professionals.
Hmm.
So we're 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 very grateful to get quick communication from a lot of different sources. And we have on our board, we have doctors and members of the health community that are giving us really the skinny about where things are projected to go. They're keeping us right on top of things. And we have other members of our board of trustees who are very close with the governor's office, and they're giving us that information as well. But really, it's about the safety of people. We don't want to bring people back either in the audience or on stage, right? I mean, putting on a show, you know what that's like. When you're backstage living with that family, with the other cast members, with the crew, really in tight proximity, and you
Yeah.
have the band in the pit, shoulder to shoulder, we can't, in good conscience, bring those people back until there are safety measures in place that you can't guarantee anything, right? Nothing is guaranteed, but
Correct.
that we can at least say we've done everything possible to keep you as safe as we can.
Hmm.
And we have a task force at the theater, made up of a lot of different constituents, planning and researching PPE and protocols and health, cleaning, sanitizing, and HVAC systems and filters, and
Hmm.
all of that is going on now in preparation. Like, it was a big step when the governor said you could go from 25 people to 150 people. That was a huge step.
Yeah.
Will it continue? I guess that depends on whether everybody wears their masks and washes their hands
Hmm.
and respects social distancing. If everybody does that, New Jersey, New York, we've been really good. I have to
Exceptional.
just give a shout out to everybody in this community for respecting and believing the guidelines that the health leaders of the health organizations are telling us. Some people are not giving us the full story. Those people will remain nameless. But I think the residents of New York, New Jersey, Connecticut have been really, really good, and it shows in the numbers. So we'll see.
And the kind of preparation that you're doing with your team in terms of PPE, HVAC systems, that's an additional expenditure too in your budget. Would it not be? Am I correct?
It's huge, and part of the discussion actually on when to come back and how to come back with our board of trustees. Just for anybody who knows, a not-for-profit regional theater runs like any corporation, although your mission is central. But you have a board. Now, in a corporate board, those are like stockholders and people who own the company. But in a not-for-profit, those board are volunteers. But they are my boss. They are the final word for the organization. And so they are challenging us as leaders, myself and Mike Stotts and our leadership team, to make sure that we're being smart about our finances. We don't have unlimited resources. You can imagine most theaters, just in general, regional theaters, operate on a very razor thin edge of profit and deficit, right?
Yeah.
Paper Mill's been lucky. We've had 7 years of 7 years in the black of
Wow.
surpluses. It's been great artistic leadership, I'd say. No, I mean
I agree.
it's the whole company, and great support, great donors, great patrons. But so we have to be sure that we're not spending down all our money to get through this odd time. And the PPE and the adjustments you have to make to get people into the theater are hundreds of thousands of dollars. And for a theater our size. And so there's a question about if it's only temporary, if the vaccine comes out and if we can get back to some sense of normalcy going into the fall of 2021, how much money should we really spend?
Right.
And no one really knows the answer to that right now. So it's a lot of planning, a lot of information gathering. And it's funny, I said this the other day. I said, this is not why I got into show business.
No.
None of us did, right? But
No.
we are all learning and doing so much more just because we love the art so much and we love what we do, and we'll do anything. In the old days, you used to say, I'll sweep floors, I'll throw out garbage just to be in show business. And so I'll research PPE and I'll budget and make new seasons just for the opportunity to get back in the theater and do what we do.
When it's taken away from you, not that we didn't value it with every fiber of our being, but when it's taken away from you, it's crystallized how vital it is to your being, to your sense of self, how much you desire the opportunity to be an artist, however you articulate that voice. But in speaking of, as you said, you've been working very, very hard, harder than you ever have, because we're dealing with something that we've never encountered before. I know that you've been very busy creating new opportunities to help engage your audience. Would you mind telling us a little bit about that? What you've been doing to keep the Paper Mill audiences engaged within the safeguards that have been presented to you?
Yeah, so we made the pivot like every other theater. But before I do that, and remind me about that, I want to say something about artists and this shutdown, because I was talking to a friend of mine who's not in the arts and trying to explain to her what the difference is for an actor, for an artist, for a director, for a designer, for an arts worker when your job is taken away. And yes, it's true, they have the same struggles as anyone who's lost their job. They have rent to pay, they have families to feed. But many other people, their job is not their identity. And arts workers, what they do is who they are. And so it's sort of a double whammy when you lose your income, but you also lose that sense of self, of your purpose, of sharing your talent with the world. I think it's doubly hard on performers, actor, all of those people whose hearts are in the entertainment business. So there's been a lot of coming together and a communal sharing and a lot of conversations and a lot of people, reaching out and talking, which has been great, because we can't gather. And what we do is we gather and we tell stories. But anyway, yes, Paper Mill pivoted immediately. The first thing we did was, when we couldn't do our performances, we took our education classes online, and that happened back in April. And we did our first ever virtual theater school classes starting in April. And we started with typical classes, but Tally, Paper Mill's huge on access and serving students and patrons with physical challenges and disabilities. We were the first theater in the country to do an comprehensive autism-friendly performance. We have pioneered digital. We pioneered open captioning, and we've been a leader in access. So we started with the typical classes, the average classes, and then immediately started with classes for students with challenges. And that was highly successful. All those classes were great, well attended. And, again, we'd never done it before. We didn't know how to teach. How do you teach the arts online? Who knows, right? And is it going to work? And how do you deal with children with physical and cognitive disabilities and working with them over a Zoom format?
Right.
How does that work? So that was highly successful. It was terrific. We started airing some things from our archives, some our humanities symposiums that we created in the past, and New Voices concerts, our student concerts. And then I started this new online series called Babbling by the Brook with Mark Hoebee. And every Wednesday night, I do a 30-minute intimate interview with one of our artists. I just did one with David Corrins, set designer from Hamilton. Andy Blankenbuehler has been on the show. Belinda Allen, who you know,
Yes, I
who
do.
played Belle opposite you, but we did a little mini West Side Story reunion. So we've
Great.
done that kind of thing as well, and that's ongoing and been great. We also did our summer musical theater conservatory program, which is a training program that's launched like Tony winners like Vicki James and Laura Benanti and
Oh,
Anne
wow.
Hathaway. Typically 120 kids in person, 5 weeks, intensive, 8-hour days. Well, we took all that online too, and it was incredibly successful. And we've gotten students now in our programs from Utah, Colorado, California, Washington State, upstate New York, Pennsylvania, even Canada, we are instructing and sharing art with, because, as you know, Zoom and HAPS platforms like these have no geographical boundaries. So,
So you're saying that you've been able to expand the reach to geographically to students all over the world?
Yes. We haven't. Well, I guess we're international. Canada's not our country.
Oh, yeah.
But, we haven't got intercontinental yet. But yes, we are teaching students in Canada. And so that is one of the upsides. I don't think we ever would have thought to, and we will keep that. Once we're back in person, we're going to keep that Zoom platform for a lot of our instruction so
Great.
that it can reach farther. And now we're just dipping our toe into the water of theatrical events and how we can in some way translate what we do in the theater live across a digital platform. And it's, as it's different.
Yeah.
The excitement of being live in a theater with an audience, communicating artist to audience, performer to audience, it's not the same. And then I always say there's a lot of people who do this, digital stuff a lot better than us theater makers, and they live in California, and they've made careers out of television and film. So trying to find a satisfying way to communicate a theatrical experience across a digital platform. That's what we and many, many regional theaters are starting to do now, and what will sustain us, I think, over the course of the next, 9 months or till we get back live.
Yeah. Mark, you and the Paper Mill produce a lot of shows in-house where you are the sole producer, you're making the costumes, you're building the sets, you cast it, but you also have a huge foot in developing new material and presenting it at the Paper Mill. How has the pandemic and the shutdown affected your developmental process?
Well, it's funny. Well, the shows that we're producing on our own, they're just dead in the water right now, right? We're not producing anything.
Right.
And actually, in the season that we had already announced for next year, our 2020-2021 season, we had 3 commercially enhanced projects. I talked about the Disney AIDA tour that we were going to launch, that was going to premiere with us and then go on a national tour for about 2 years. That was one. And then The Wanderer, this brand new a musical about Dion. That was another one. And then we were going to do a brand new musical called Bruce, which is based on the making of Jaws. It's not
Right.
Jaws the musical, but it is actually the making of Jaws. So, you know, those projects have to look forward. You cannot produce a major world premiere musical in a compromised way. You can't respect social distancing. You cannot have an audience that's only a third full. You can't reduce the budget so much that we'll need to in this sort of COVID-friendly season.
Hmm.
So all those projects are looking now forward to what is our 21-22 season,
Okay.
which seems far away, but actually is not that far because it's only a year from now. But it's interesting that the 21-22 season, well, I have many more projects calling me on the phone that want a slot in that season than we could possibly host because everybody's looking to that, thinking the vaccine will be around, things will be back to normal. And
Hmm.
so all these shows, these new projects, we had at least three and a half, I'll say, that we had in development, and now they're pushed forward a year. So those and other projects that are coming to us, yeah, that season is going to be really exciting.
Well, absolutely. I wanted to, in terms of like these, not only the shows that you're producing in house, but the shows that you're helping develop that you would present or co-present, they're having to look forward. And you mentioned that, like many, if not every regional theater in the country, has had to make very tough decisions in terms of layoffs and
Yeah,
furloughs. We hope to attain some sense of normalcy, you know, sooner rather than later. But in terms of your staff, the people that you've employ and have employed at Paper Mill, many of whom have been there for decades doing
right.
exemplary work, those positions that had to be furloughed or laid off, what is the sense of the ability to bring them back? Are positions needing to be eliminated? I know that's happening in theaters across the country. I'm just curious what your point of view is in terms of employment for those people that have had to lose their jobs or temporarily lose their jobs in the
Yeah,
theater.
sure. I mean, we have eliminated a few positions. We've downsized. You know, it's funny. Paper Mill went through a crisis in 2007. It was a financial crisis of our own creation, but we almost went out of business then. So we've unfortunately been through this exercise before, where you have to pare down the entire organization, re-examine the business model, and then start over. Um,
Hmm.
but which is why I'm fully confident that we will come back because I've seen it. It's happened
Hmm.
twice already at Paper Mill. In 1979, the theater burned to the ground and could have just gone away, and it
Right.
was rebuilt and came back to a point where before I was there had 45,000 subscribers, and you know, one of the leading regional theaters in the country. And then in 2007, almost went out of business because of a financial crisis. We came back again, back up to 22,000 subscribers. You know, were awarded the Regional Theater Tony, moved 4 shows to Broadway, launched multiple national tours, 22 premieres or world premieres in my
Wow.
tenure, in my like 12 years. So, you know, this again is another, you know, valley, but I'm fully confident we will come back. That doesn't make it any easier right now for the people who are out of work. It
Of course.
doesn't. Um, but our goal is to get as many people back as soon as possible. And so we are developing scenarios, and we have spreadsheets and Excel documents that show if we can go live in this month, who do we bring back? You know, how many weeks, months ahead of time to get
Hmm.
everything going? Because let's just pick a date. Let's say May 1st, you know, we're going to go live in the theater with a show.
Great.
That doesn't mean that on, you know, April 15th you call everybody up and say, come in because 2 weeks we're going live. There are production people that have to come back to prep. There's marketing people that have to come to set up box office and sell tickets. There are, there's a whole, you have to get a costume shop back up and running. The lights went out very quickly, right? They just shut off the switch and pulled the plug and everything stopped. But it doesn't ramp up that quickly. You can't just turn it on like that. So we have many, many different scenarios that show when people will come back. And it really is determined on how much runway they need before the show gets started. But our goal is to bring people back as soon as possible. Even if we don't go live until, if we didn't have a live performance, which I'm praying to the heavens above is not true, doesn't happen till the end of September of 2021, which would be the beginning of that season, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to start bringing people back in February of this year.
Yeah.
Because you have to sell that season. You have to market it, sell it, plan it, cast it, design it, right? And then eventually the crew has to come back in to prep the theater, to get the costume shop running. It takes that much time. I think of Paper Mill as this locomotive that is, just, and we were sailing 7 years of success and surplus and all of those great shows and great partners and all of that. And we were, going 120 miles an hour down this track. And then all of a sudden, the brakes were pulled on. And it takes a long time to get back up to that speed again. But you can't, you know what it's like. You can't put a show together unless you're operating at 120 miles an hour. So it takes a long runway. And our goal is just to get people back as soon as it's safe. As soon as we get the okay that it's safe to bring, and first has to start with the administrative staff. We don't have anybody in our offices. I go in one day a week to sign checks, and there's a couple of finance people, but basically nobody's in the office. So first the administrative people come back, then the crew comes back to get things ready for the cast to come back and go into rehearsal and get a show up. So it's a long runway.
Yeah, and I think that maybe the people that aren't as well versed in the theater as you are or I am or any of our colleagues, they might not understand that the amount of people it takes to mount a show, let alone a full season in an 1,100 plus not-for-profit theater that is sending shows out on tour, shows to Broadway, is astronomical. And if these are people working at the height of their powers, and it takes that kind of preparation to present artistry that is exemplary. Otherwise, anyone could do it.
Yeah, right. And it's funny when the patrons come into the theater, right? All they should think about is the show they're seeing, how much they love it, right? Wow, that's great. But they don't realize that there's 100 other people backstage making all that magic happen. You know what that's like, right?
Yeah.
That the 30 people or so that are on stage doing this incredible musical, there's another 40 backstage supporting them, the crew, the orchestra, all of that. And then up in the offices, there's the administrative staff who are not only selling this current show and the rest of that season, but we are planning for the next season. And oftentimes in artistic and production, we're planning for the season beyond.
Right.
So we're trying to work like a year and a half or 2 years ahead in the best possible world. It's not always possible like that. But that's what I keep saying about the machine and the locomotive that's running and running and running. So yeah, it takes a lot of people to do that, and to operate at the level we operate on, which is we're about a $20 million organization, 5 shows a year, but education programs that reach 35,000 students a year across the state of New Jersey, outreach programs, access. All of those things as well, all of that, pretty much ground to a halt on March 13th. Some of it's back up and running in a virtual way, but yeah, it's going to take a lot of work. And it's crazy. I feel like I'm working longer hours and harder now than I've ever worked before, and we're not producing theater, That seems like the easy part. Just get me into the theater.
Yeah.
I can put on a show. Let me tell you, I can direct and tech and produce a show. But this planning, and I think a lot of it is, and every industry is facing this, is because there's so much unknown, right? We don't
Yeah.
know what's coming, and so you're just planning.
Right. And you're planning on, I mean, like you said, this is what you do. You've been doing this your whole life. You put on a show. You can get it out there, and you can get it something that audience is going to respond to. But what we're planning for is, and sort of rolling out is planning for hope, like instilling hope in
Right.
people that it's going to come back, because that's why
Yeah.
people come to the theater. So with that in mind, how can people help the Paper Mill Playhouse? What's the best way for them to help you right now? Because obviously, like many theaters, whether it's Paper Mill, Goodspeed, the Old Globe in San Diego,
Yeah.
Fifth Avenue, Chicago Shakes, you've lost a huge revenue stream because you
Yeah.
don't have art to put on a stage, and then there's nothing for people to come see. So how can people help you?
I'll tell you. Um, well, first of all, like last year when we had to cancel those last two shows, Sister Act and The Wanderer, we
Hmm.
lost about $4 million in income
Hmm.
from those two productions. That's huge. That's, unfathomable. I do have to say, give a shout out to all of our supporters, our, and that means everyone, donors, subscribers, and even single ticket buyers who were generous and continued to support us by donating either their tickets back. Some people, even though we weren't going to produce those two last shows, they said, keep the money, we've already bought our subscription and we believe in you.
That's
Some
great.
people, I know, some people continued to give us donations.
Wow.
Corporations, corporate and foundation people have been very generous. And, and our subscribers, they're the best. Some people have subscribed to Paper Mill for like 20, 30 years, and they truly are like our family. So how can you help? Well, I mean, it sounds crude, but it's true. We need their donations. We need help financially. The best scenario that we're looking at for next year, the very best scenario, which means providing a season of entertainment for our subscribers who've already subscribed, and raising the same amount of money that we raised this past year puts us in a deficit position of about $1.5 million.
Wow.
So there's like kind of no way to dig out of this hole without people who love theater and the arts and Paper Mill specifically by saying, and I know everybody's hurting, right? There's a lot of people out of
Yeah.
work. There's, but that's the best way. And if you can't, actually donate, to just tell the story of Paper Mill, why you love the theater, why you think it's important for New Jersey. And it might not just be the main stage. It might be one of our education programs, or, our autism friendly programs, or any of those community efforts that we have. Just keep us alive in the conversation while we are working hard to get back on the stage. And I do think, circling back to what you said before, Tally, which is that we all, as human beings, crave to be together, right? We're like pack animals. We're like dogs, right? We like to be in a group, huddled
Yeah.
together, warm, puppies sharing and having a good time. And I do believe that once people are able to come back to the theater, they're going to come back in droves. And like you said, they're going to appreciate it and respect the work and honor and celebrate all kinds of live performance in a different way. But in this moment, in the moment we're in now, actors, performers like yourself with no work, and theaters with no source of income, it's a tough time. So we have always depended upon the kindness of strangers. I won't say they're strangers though; they're family.
Right.
Strangers can give money too, but it's our donors, our patrons, our subscribers, our single ticket buyers, those people who've come to Paper Mill and are thinking about us and supporting us. That's really what you can do.
And can they do that by visiting papermill.org?
Oh, they can. Yes. Our website is www.papermill.org, and you can find out everything that's going on there. There's a lot, the Babbling by the Brook digital series, when we announce what our season will be for next year. our education programs, our theater school that we announced for our fall session that has already surpassed its goal. So
Wow.
those classes are selling out really fast, and all our other efforts are there. I will tell you, we did a campaign in the spring called the Curtain Up campaign. It was about helping us raise the curtain again and looking forward toward next year. And people were very, very generous and donated to that. And we're going to continue that. We're going to have another Curtain Up campaign specifically for raising money for the theater to get shows back up on stage. So there'll be more information about that, but all of it's on our website. Yeah, everything.
That's great. That's great. Well, I want to say a couple things before I let you go. The first thing is I want to impress upon people, and you have done this so well, the importance of the not-for-profit regional theater in terms of the growth and foundation of the American theater in general. It is vital that it is addressed on a state and federal level in terms of helping us recover so that the theater can recover at large. It's so important, and you've impressed that upon me and upon the audience, but I just think it's.
I think you're kind to say that, but it is important because I think that what people don't understand, the largest business in Millburn, New Jersey, the largest economic generator is paper mill. And not just, we don't even pay taxes. We're not for profit. That's not what it is. It's because when people go to the theater, they hire a babysitter. They go out to dinner. They do all of those things. There's so many far-reaching tentacles of arts, the economic generation that arts does. If you've walked through Midtown Manhattan anytime in these last 6 months,
Wow.
it is a ghost town.
Yeah.
The restaurants on Restaurant Row aren't even open because no one is there to fill them up. So people, I think what we are learning is that the arts is not a luxury to life. It is a necessity. And even if you don't believe in the artistic value of the product and you're really like a moneymaker, right brain person, the numbers tell the story, which is that the arts generate more economic activity than any other industry, I think, in the country. So,
$8.77 billion.
Okay, you got the number.
Yeah, $8.77 billion. The arts industry employs 5.1 million people across the nation. It's
huge.
It's huge, and it's a folly to think that it's anything other than that. That it's anything other than a linchpin of our society. But I want to thank you so much for coming on and speaking to us. And I want to say to the folks watching out there that this man is an incredible leader. He's such a passionate, intelligent, open-hearted artist, and you could do a lot worse than to get to work with him. And please go when Paper Mill is open. Go and see a show there. Please go to www.papermill.org and donate if you can to help keep the theater alive. Mark, it's so good to see your face.
You too.
I'm wishing you and your family lots of safety and health. And if there's anything, well, obviously we can talk about this privately, anything I can do to help you and help the Paper Mill, I will be there in a second.
I'll be calling on you, absolutely.
Please
Love you,
do.
Tally. Thanks for having me on. It's great to see you.
Great to see you, buddy. Love you, man. Be well, okay?
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Much for joining us, folks. Have a great weekend. We will be back next week, and I'll announce our guest on Wednesday. Thanks again.